have to do something. When it comes time to standing up for a world I want my children to live in, I don't want to leave them a world to where they don't have these liberties. People aren't allowed to have voice, and yet Facebook touts itself with promoting people's opportunity to have voice. They're trying to control this content before it even makes it onto your page, before you even see it. If I lose my job, it's like, what do I do? But that's less of a concern to me.
We have just obtained multiple leaked documents from inside Facebook, this time detailing a plan to curb, quote, vaccine hesitancy on a global scale. It was so concerning, it brought us not one, but two whistleblowers from inside Facebook who are ready to speak out on what this means for free speech and public discourse on their own platform.
Facebook uses classifiers in their algorithms to determine certain content to be what they call vaccine hesitant, or they call it vaccine hesitancy, and without the user's knowledge, they assign a score to these comments that's called a VH score, the vaccine hesitancy score. And based on that score, we'll demote or leave the comment alone, depending on the content within the comment.
Our first Facebook insider is a data center technician who leaked us multiple internal documents detailing an algorithm test being run on 1.5% of Facebook and Instagram's nearly 3.8 billion users worldwide. The goal? To, quote, drastically reduce user exposure to vaccine hesitancy in comments.
It's the same thing. You'll see a lot of this difference in their public policy versus the private policy, where the public policy is very vague, it's very ambiguous, it's designed to be questioned because it's designed to be able to easily defend. But then if you look at the private policy, it's much more clear, much more specific. I think that they're trying to make it seem like they're not doing as much, or that they're just kind of like generalizing it, like, oh, we just have some robot that just tags your post and then, we look at it. But I think they don't want people to know, oh no, we actually have something that we made specifically for vaccine hesitancy. So the main document, along with all the attachments and stuff that goes with it. So basically, when they write this algorithm, it goes through Facebook content and it looks for certain keywords that are related to vaccination or not getting a vaccine and stuff like that. And it gives it a score, and the VA score means vaccine hesitancy, which is defined as being hesitant to get a vaccine, but not just like, well, I don't know, it's even, well, I saw a study that said that someone died that got the vaccine. That's vaccine hesitancy.
So this is a beta test. This is all a beta test.
Right.
And how big is this beta test?
They refer to the test size as 1.5%. I'm not exactly which pool that pulls from, but I think it's comments on authoritative health pages. You
seem to think that they've already rolled this out. Why do we believe they've already rolled this out?
In one slideshow that they have, they call it their weekly progress tracker. Mm-hmm. They actually lay all this out in a chart, and you can see it. You can look at the slides, they go by date. So we've got here COVID-19 vac safety and efficacy global. Currently global, 13 languages, Facebook plus Instagram. C-19 vaccine, global, currently global, 66 languages. And the very first thing that brought me to the conclusion that they wanted to do this globally is they were developing it in as many languages as they could get their hands on.
So this is like a product launch almost.
Yes, yeah. In their last quarterly report, they reported 2.79 billion people on Earth use some kind of Facebook app.
Who's behind this new algorithm policy? Well, one thing is for sure, the authors of this experiment, Juyo Hao, Nick Gibeon, Hendrik Townley, Amit Ball, and Matt Gills are not low-level employees. In fact, one of the internal documents Project Veritas obtained was a Facebook flowchart that showed they are only a few clicks away from Mark Zuckerberg himself. Who makes these decisions?
These are teams at Facebook, and they work with what they call B2V, barriers to vaccination. So that's one of their core terms, is barriers to vaccination. And then the people on these teams, they call them health integrity teams. So there's a health integrity team for Messenger, there's a health integrity team for every system Facebook has.
Health and integrity team, is it something that came out about after March 2020 and COVID?
No.
This is something that's existed
for
some time.
Yes.
So we have health integrity teams and barrier to vaccination teams at Facebook.
For this year, Amit Ball, he's a research scientist for the core data science team at Facebook. He also works in health integrity. Everyone who works on this project works in health integrity. Nick Townley, this is the experiment launch post. As you can see, this is on April 16th. This is 2021. That's why there's no year there, because this is this year. And Hendrik Townley is one of the software engineers that works on this. I think it was him and two other software engineers. And then Amit Bal wrote the actual classifier itself. I'm sure he had like a team of developers, but he is considered the one who wrote it. Amit Bal, and then as you go up, it's like his boss, boss's boss, boss's boss's boss.
So Amit Bal works for Udi Weisenberg, who works for Nicholas Steer. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
And that person works for Danny Ferrante, and that person works for Javier Olivian, and Javier Olivian reports directly to Mark Zuckerberg. So there's a chain that goes all the way down to Amit Bal. This kind of censorship sounds similar to shadow banning, when users are unaware their posts can't be seen, a term one of our own investigations coined when exposing Twitter just a few years ago. But this time, we're exposing Facebook and Instagram's methods to quash an entire side of a conversation, arguably one of the most pressing issues of the day. According to these documents, Facebook tiers users 0 to 5 and a score 0 to 1. Can you talk a little about this tier system?
Yeah, so basically this is what they're using to structure how they're going to judge this content on a scale to how vaccine hesitant it actually is, or if it's explicitly discouraging. In my opinion, the main reason why they built this was for the human, what they call raters, so that they can use this as a reference so if the algorithm can't make a decision on a certain post, it'll send it to a human rater. And then the human rater looks at it and they will make a decision on whether or not it's vaccine hesitant or not.
So we have tier 2, indirect discouragement. And what happens when you are a tier 2?
So basically your comment is going to be suppressed. As to the scale of that suppression, it's hard to say. We have to look at like a case-by-case basis. But what they're saying is it's going to get, they call it a position change. On some of these comments you can see it'll say position change 7. And I'm not sure whether the 7 refers to like a 7% or if it's just like 7 positions down in the comment chain.
So it's suppressed.
Yes.
But we don't know the extent of the suppression.
Right.
And we've heard shadow ban, we've heard deboost, I have not heard position change. Facebook has not been shy about combating vaccine hesitancy, as reported in their own press release dated May 11th of this year. However, what they say publicly in their own policy doesn't scratch the surface of what is written in these internal leaked documents by the Facebook whistleblower. If I read this correctly, Facebook is saying it doesn't matter if the story is true so long as it doesn't cause people to hesitate getting the vaccine? Or what's your read on this?
The borderline vaccine framework, shocking stories, potentially or actually true. Events or facts that can raise safety concerns.
That post was done by a user, and they've taken a screenshot and observed it as part of the tier system.
Right.
What about this gives them alarm?
How is this not scary? That would be considered indirect discouragement.
Indirect discouragement, which should be considered tier 2.
Right.
So this is an example of indirect discouragement of the vaccine.
Questioning the vaccine, questioning anything involving the vaccine.
And this was then demoted on Facebook. So this is another example of tier 2 indirect discouragement. Why don't you tell us why this would be indirect discouragement according to Facebook?
So this would be considered vaccine hesitant because they don't want people to see someone had a bad effect. They're not saying don't get the vaccine, but they're saying look at all this negative stuff that happened after I got the vaccine.
So they're reporting facts, but truth doesn't matter.
No, because it doesn't match the narrative. So, and the narrative being, get the vaccine is good for you, everyone should get it, and if you don't, you will be singled out.
Right.
As an enemy of society. So the VAERS data is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. It looks like they're measuring the comments where they're mentioning, that the patient died. So
is VAERS a CDC supported program?
Yes, I think so. Really, they support all this because they release the standards, the CDC themselves. And that's really one of the primary things that Facebook is basing their policy off of is, well, if you looked at the public policy, it would be according to the authoritative health pages.
So they are open about the fact that they essentially coordinate with the CDC here.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
From the internal document, content pointing to the vaccine adverse effects reporting system, data that suggests extreme risk without providing full context. Full context. Mm-hmm. What do they mean by that?
I think so, like in the previous comments, like she said, during this study, 653 people died, and then they don't put the rest of the study in there. It's like, okay, so you want me to write like a 10-page comment?
Right.
What's full context?
What is the context?
What is another ambiguous term? If they saw a study from someone they didn't like, would they say, well, that's not the full context because A, B, C, D, E, F, G?
Ultimately, it seems like any facts that escape a particular narrative are omitted, demoted, deboosted, banned.
Yes.
considered dangerous to society?
Suppress it any way possible.
Where do you think this is headed? Does it get worse from here?
Yes.
How so?
I think people accept it, and they see people like Twitter, Facebook, Google, and stuff like that. They see that this is accepted by the public, and then they go, "That's like a green light." To be like, "Oh, we can go ahead and do this more." So not only are we going to start doing vaccine stuff, we're going to spread it to everything. So we're going to start saying, "Oh, if you make a post that could put somebody in danger, or it could compromise someone's safety, whatever that means, then we're going to go ahead and look at that and assign that a score of some unknown classifier. Who knows what it could be?" They're trying to control this content before it even makes it onto your page, before you even see it when you're scrolling on your phone. I think they're afraid of what people would conclude.
Sounds like they don't think about the underlying values.
Yeah, or what it could turn into, the slippery slope.
They're not even thinking about that.
Nope.
And do you think there's a lot of people inside Facebook that agree with you, or some percentage? How would you estimate that number of people to be?
I would say at least 25%.
So you're telling me that 25% of the people there agree that what they're doing with this vaccine hesitancy coding and algorithms is morally wrong?
Yes, that would not surprise me at all. The policy is going to keep expanding until anything can violate it. What would happen if this was scaled larger and scaled to Twitter and the internet as a whole is way worse than anything that could happen from me getting fired from my job. To me, that it far outweighs that. Because it's about more than me. It's about really everyone in the world.
It's clear this Facebook insider is not alone in his concerns of Facebook's new policy that will demote discourse on vaccines in general. As a matter of fact, the next insider you're about to meet felt so compelled to come forward, he goes so far as to compare the new policy to an abusive relationship. What do you do at Facebook?
I'm a data center engineer. I'd say that, in a sense, it's prohibiting people from being able to have an open dialogue about issues that affect their personal security. Some of these things, the questions, the comments that are being presented, are from people that have concerns about their personal health or their personal security being affected. It's kind of like having a relationship with somebody that's controlling and abusive, in a sense, like an abusive partner not allowing their spouse to speak out about the things that are going on in their marriage or their relationship and limiting their voice. It's very damaging from that sense. If you think about this logically, it just, it's very incriminating in my opinion.
Just months ago, this same insider leaked us a tape of Mark Zuckerberg privately speaking to his team last July, showcasing his own vaccine hesitancy when talking about COVID.
I do just want to make sure that I share some caution on this because we just don't know the long-term side effects of basically modifying people's DNA and RNA.
Today, his own words would violate their new public policy. You were the source that brought us the Mark Zuckerberg vaccine footage from July 2020, is that correct?
That's correct.
Zuckerberg seemed to change his mind, evolve on the issue of vaccine, and the Facebook policy itself would have prevented Zuckerberg from saying what it is that he had said just a few months ago. Pretty crazy. What prompted you to give that footage to Project Veritas?
Well, based on my own knowledge and research of, the adverse effects and potential side effects of vaccines, of any medication really. So I think it's important for people to be understanding of those facts. We're able to have these conversations at work with our coworkers about our medical decisions, and we do. We have them, frequently. Why is it okay for us to have these conversations at work as adults and not have somebody step in and say, hey, you need to stop talking about that, and you shouldn't talk about that, you're not allowed to talk about that's fact check, that's false. Occasionally people do in the conversation, but we're allowed to have open dialogue and hear.
You're saying that you can have these conversations at the water cooler in an office.
Absolutely, even in the midst of the office.
In the midst of the office.
Yes.
At Facebook, the location, Facebook, but you're not allowed to go onto Facebook and write this stuff.
No.
That's ironic.
It is very ironic.
What is your message to Mr. CEO Mark Zuckerberg, who is certainly watching this video?
I would ask, you said that you support freedom of expression. My question to you is, why, in a sense, you don't support freedom of expression in the most basic sense that's available to all people everywhere, which is to exist as God created them, without any interference or intrusion by any corporation or government to exist as they are? And why push the narrative that it's not okay for people to go ahead and exist, to express themselves as God's creation without taking a vaccine? Why is there this push to suppress that ideology?
This insider's biggest concern is Facebook building a, quote, community of compliance, unquote, and feels the topic may go beyond the authority of Zuckerberg himself.
It's the platform that they want to build. It's the community that they want to build. They want to build a community where everybody complies, not where people can have open discourse and dialogue about the most personal and private and intimate decisions that anybody could ever face in their life, which is regarding their own body, their own health.
And based upon your position and what you've seen in your role at Facebook, why do they want people to comply? Why is that the culture at Facebook?
For the promotion of a society that is focused on medical progress, in a sense, or medical experimentation.
What is Facebook doing to promote COVID vaccines to its billions of users?
Specifically encouraging people to post, to take on the profile frame for showing that they've been vaccinated, and to promote, in a sense, solidarity amongst other people that have taken the vaccine, and encourage users to also go and get the vaccine. It's interesting that they would, encourage one side, but not allow the other side to speak of, why they wouldn't be making a decision to get a vaccine. There's no solidarity, there's no opportunity to be united around that. It's just basically get the vaccine or feel left out. People aren't allowed to have voice, and yet, Facebook touts itself with promoting people's opportunity to have voice. And, I stated before, having a voice about the most important decisions anyone has to face in their life is pretty important, and it's shocking and disturbing, really, to see people that are willing to go to the lengths of limiting those discussions around the world, for things that concern people's own personal security. I almost feel like there's outside sources pressuring Mark, or could be. I'm not saying that's a fact, but, it does make me concerned. And you look at the video with Fauci and, Mark discussing it. Mark doesn't seem too pleased with, the fact that he had to bring it up. It's almost like he was, he had to mention it.
These two brave insiders know they risk it all standing against Facebook, one of the most powerful institutions of the day. Yet, they are still putting it all on the line in order to preserve our liberties.
I think that's also the main reason why people don't want to come out with it, because what if I have 2 kids, I have, my wife, and if I lose my job, it's like, what do I do? But that's less of a concern to me. So.
And the people who may do what you did next, but they're not sure if they should do it, what's your message to those people?
I'd say go ahead and do it. And then just think about what I said. There's a lot of blowback to telling the truth, and that's true as far as human history is concerned. And yeah, you are going to receive blowback, but just weigh it out. Can you live with yourself for the rest of your life? You work at Facebook and you knew about this, especially if it came out later. And you're like, man, I saw that so many times. I could have said something and I didn't. How are you going to feel about that? That's my thing. My morality. I have to show somebody this, because at least, even if nothing were to come of this and for some reason everything was scrapped, I would still think that it was worth it. I'm like, well, at least I tried. I tried to show somebody this.
It's almost like you're saying that your desire to follow your conscience outweighs any potential risk there might be to you from doing this.
Yes.
What is your message to those people that are watching this who agree with you inside Facebook?
I would say that you're not alone. The biggest thing with social media that we've seen throughout the years is that ranking people's comments, their posts, even like news media, there's this view that tries to make you think that you're alone in this and that you're not the majority. And even people that say that they agree with it, internally they deal with struggles. Internally they question things. It's just that they're not able to overcome that cognitive dissonance that sits in, and they resort to what is safe. It's easier to comply with things than it is to come forward and say this is wrong, or to really awaken to understanding that the way you're being treated or the way other people are being treated is wrong. And so that's challenging, but know that you're not alone, and that if you do come forward and you do speak up, that you can live peacefully knowing that you did the right thing no matter what. And that's encouraging not just to other people, but it's also encouraging to yourself. And it won't make you feel as alone anymore.
That's very profound, I think.
I'm a father, so, obviously, I fear for my family, for my children's safety. And, but I also understand that I have to, as I told, my wife, I have to do something, when it comes time to standing up for a world I want my children to live in. I don't want to leave them a world to where they don't have these liberties, these personal securities, to where they can willingly make their own medical decisions between them, their doctor, and those that are closest to them. That's not something I can live in. That's not something I could do. And it came down to the point where I had to make a decision to do what was right.
I'm Mario with Project Veritas. Really quick, sent you an email here a few minutes ago. I'm not sure if you've seen it yet. Requesting comment. We've obtained documents here from Facebook talking about vaccine hesitancy. It's an internal document. It's pretty classified according to what we've seen. We've attached it in the email. We were wondering if you could provide us some comment on that.
I'll take a look.
Okay, thank you. And when can we expect a response by?
I'll take a look now.
Okay, excellent. We'll be looking forward to that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Be brave. Do something. Follow their lead. Visit Veritas Tips at protonmail.com.